सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.
Brhat Mrdanga presents The Gift of Desperation, a Bhakti recovery podcast. This is a 12-step based Bhakti-oriented space. Here we share our experience, strength, and hope in the spirit of recovery from addictions and associated behaviors. Welcome. Hello, hello. So, everybody, hey, how you doing? Welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks
Yeah.
for showing up and doing this interview. This is a really special story. I'm really excited to have this talk. And this is a really nice, different story of, this is what we do. We do all kinds of stories of recovery. And this story is an interesting story because it's about prescription things that were given from doctors and much more. So, Brhat Mrdanga Das.
There you go. Brhat Mrdanga Das.
Brhat Mrdanga Das.
Got
We
it.
have, yeah, sorry about that. I was telling his a wonderful story. So, hey, how are you? Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm busy melting in the heat of India. I'm almost a puddle right now.
Oh gosh. So,
Yeah.
so you live in India. That's
I
fantastic.
live in India, yeah. In
Fantastic.
Mayapur.
In Mayapur. Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, Mayapur.
Maybe you want to tell people just briefly, because they're not going to be only people here in Krishna consciousness or listening to the podcast. So just briefly, maybe a brief explanation of where Mayapur.
Yeah, Mayapur is along the banks of the Ganges. It's about 120 kilometers. I guess that's like 65 miles from Kolkata, towards the west. It's not far from the border of Bangladesh. And so it's right there in the jungle. It's kind of it's bigger than the village now. It's a town. It's quite happening here. But yeah, it's off the beaten track. Yeah, it's quite a mission to get here from Kolkata.
which is really funny because it's like 120 kilometers away, and it seems like it's like 400 kilometers away because how long it takes to get there. So funny.
4 hours drive. Yeah,
I know, it's insane.
You don't measure distance in miles or kilometers. Yeah, you measure distance in time, in hours. Because the distance is irrelevant.
It's so funny. It's so funny. So basically, Mayapur is kind of like, I mean, you're saying it's actually kind of like, the Vatican for devotees, sort of, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, the Vatican for the Hare Krishna movement. And but at the same time, West Bengal, the state, is actually a Muslim-run government. And there's, I think, the majority of the people here are actually Islam. And but they're very peaceful people. I don't see any kind of problems, between the different, I would say, religious denominations. So everybody's quite happy and peaceful. But that's what Mayapur is. It's it's the heart of
it's a little haven
of the Hare Krishna movement. Yeah,
oh, beautiful.
It's very nice. Yeah,
beautiful.
International community, obviously. So we have people from all over the world. Big Russian community here, and
wow.
Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, you name it. There's people from that part of the world living here. Countries you've never even heard of, can't even pronounce.
Countries we can never pronounce. Yeah.
My knowledge of geography has increased since living here.
That's pretty
You
good.
meet somebody that say, I'm from this place, and you're like, afterwards you check on your phone, Googling, what is this place? Where is it? It's like, never heard of it.
That's so funny. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, thanks for that little explanation.
Yeah, so lovely.
So,
Hmm.
so tell us a little bit about your story. Like how did you come? First of all, how did you decide to become clean, and how did that correlate yourself? How does that correlate with your Krishna consciousness? And for those who don't know what Krishna consciousness is, it is part of the Hare Krishna movement. And this is just Mrdanga's experience, strength, and hope with his journey. So.
Uh, yeah, I think my nature has always been quite inquisitive and quite rebellious, typical like indigo wave type of like person. And where I'm from Afrikaans community, which are, when the Dutch came down to South Africa a couple of 100 years ago, they became what, I am today. So our language is very similar to Dutch, and also especially that stubbornness and our enjoyment of cheese has been inherited from the Dutch. We make good cheese. You can even ask the Dutch; they'll agree. So, and so they're very, like, I would say, headstrong, and people who can survive against the odds. And they were the only people who the British could not best. They had to resort to foul means to be able to defeat the Afrikaner Boers. They they couldn't fight the head on, so they went to the farms and they chucked all the kids and women in concentration camps and burned the farms, and that's how they defeated them. But so this is a bit of my culture, like where I'm grown up in. So it's very conservative, um,
Mm.
like Dutch Reformed Christian um, type of culture, and very traditional. Now, not so much, but in the 90s when I was growing up, it was quite traditional still. And so I had a
Did you
lot of,
guys learn Afrikaans in school, or just English, or both?
no, both. It was
Hmm.
predominantly Afrikaans school, I guess, until maybe in the 2000s started more English influence coming in. But even still now, my hometown is mostly like Afrikaans, except for the few
Mm.
like foreigners who have shops there. It's like 90% still Afrikaans speaking. So they're all naturally Afrikaans, actually, because my mom is she grew up in like the eastern part of South Africa and in Kenya. She grew up also a
Hmm.
lot of her life. So she never was Afrikaans until she married my dad, who's the Afrikaans man. So I was fluent in both languages. And in my school, I was by far the best English speaker, because the English was terrible because
Well,
they
your
were all
mom
the
is
Afrikaans
definitely
first
from.
language.
Is your mom from English roots, right? Obviously, that's usually
She has
where.
English roots, but she's from
Mhm.
South Africa, but she's got close roots to the UK.
Yeah,
And
that's usually the area where
yeah.
people from the UK go. Yeah, and Kenya and stuff.
Mhm. So I think so with my nature in that kind of setting was they perceived it as quite disruptive, and also, like, I guess you could say, the typical ADHD, OCD kind of, child. Which, by the way, I don't really buy into these type of labels, because I think
Mm.
psychiatry is a complete hoax. But anyway, it is what it is. It's just like a certain set of symptoms which are part of a personality, which I have, or I am.
Hmm.
And so there was also, I think, that coupled with, I've been blessed with pretty good brains. So I learned very fast, and therefore I also got bored very fast in school. And they thought, like, I'm slow, or like I can't pay attention, but actually they couldn't stimulate me enough. And
I so understand that. It's like by the end of the class, you already know what they're going to say anyway. By the beginning of the class, you know what the end of the class is going to be, and so
right,
you're just bored. Yeah, I get it.
right. And then as a kid who's smart, then you also get a little bit proud, and then that doesn't look very well, to the teachers and stuff. You think there's this kid with this big head, and he thinks he's so great. And so, but he's just a child, how's he supposed to handle that? He doesn't understand what pride is even. So they diagnosed me with ADHD and
Oh.
obsessive compulsive disorder when I was I think 9 years old, and then they started already. I was grade 4 then. We still had
So what was your
standards, so it was standard 2.
what was your OCD like? How did it manifest?
It wasn't very severe. It was more um like all my coat hangers in my closet had to face the same direction.
Okay, I have the same thing. Yeah,
So
I get that.
yeah, when I have my clothes on, certain things should be level and symmetrical. And I would get very upset and emotional, like if I can't
Mhm.
control my environment enough to make it like that. And or like when I set my desk up in school, like everything has to be square and parallel with all the corners. And it was so it wasn't like the type where you like have to wash your
Wash your
hands,
hands.
like
Yes.
I wasn't like that. I wasn't like that. But I didn't like sticky fingers, or my mom said I was quite hectic
Texture.
as a kid when we went to the beach, because I would
Mhm.
just like be freaking out about the sand being stuck to my toes and feet the whole time, and they're just running up and down with buckets of water trying to appease me. I have no
That's so funny.
recollection of that, but it's what I've
That's
been told.
funny. Do you have,
So
did
so
you
there's
have, do you have like texture
yeah,
things? Like when you touch stuff, it's like certain textures would make you freak out. I have
I
that. I'm just
hated it.
wondering. Oh, I
in
still
in
have
art
that.
in art class we used to do we had a project. I actually remember this was grade 3. We had to do, what do you call it, paper mache,
Oh my
where you have
God.
the
Yeah.
cornstarch in the water. I refused. I refused. The teacher tried to coerce me in different ways. I just like refused. The punishment and all these things been threatened. I didn't care. It's like I ain't sticking my hands in that stuff. And then when they spoke to my mom just said, "He's not going to do it." He's just like, just give up.
Forget
So
it. Yeah.
yeah. So then I just couldn't get, I couldn't get over myself to do that. So I just did a painting project instead. So it was so some textures were definitely sticky, gooey stuff. I hate it. Even now, it's like I don't like dirty hands or
Yeah.
sticky fingers. It's too much. Like my consciousness just gets stuck on it. It's
Yes. I get that very much.
yeah. But I think it's kind of normal too. I think I also had a certain level, maybe from a previous life of, practicing
Yes.
spiritual life, that I enjoyed a certain level of personal cleanliness. And children are naturally unclean. So then, but I still got this attachment to being clean. So then there's a bit of a conflict, like within myself. So I get clean, and then I do something, and then immediately I'm kind of dirty again. And then I have to go and clean it off. And it's like fighting those two natures, and which I think is normal. There's nothing. And even like being ADHD, is like, for me, I think I was hyper attentive, not deficit. And
Well, of
and
course,
just
that's
like
what it
and
is.
just
It's
full
the
of energy.
deficit of
Yeah,
what the world wants you to concentrate on. It's like you have a deficit on what we deem as important in the industrial era. So
right.
this is the thing. This is where I totally disagree with the deficit. I agree with overwhelming amount of sensory perception at once. It's
Mm.
like it's not a deficit, it's the actual opposite. But
It's the
anyway, so
opposite. Yeah.
so you were diagnosed with that. What happened then when they diagnosed you? What did you what did they like, what was the regime?
They gave me prescription medicine. It started with Ritalin, and like over the next few years, they were shifting to different forms of Ritalin, fast release and slow release, and stronger. And I remember my teacher had a stash of Ritalins also. So at a certain time in the day, I had to take a top-up dose. And so while all of this was going on, I didn't really understand what was happening. But when I got out of it all at the end, I
How
started
old were you?
understanding. I was 9 years old.
Oh my God.
I was
Okay.
9 years old. So that was
Let's
it's
give a
very, very young.
nine-year-old. Let's give the 9-year-old some freaking amphetamine. Sorry. Yeah.
Man, in the 90s, they were like so happy to experiment with psychiatric drugs on kids. They were very quick to give
Oh,
kids these
totally.
things.
My daughter too. They tried to give her. I didn't give it to her though, but they tried to.
Uh,
They tried to give it to her.
yeah, my parents were none the wiser. They didn't know. They just trusted, the so-called authorities.
Yeah.
And so what that did to me was that because I'm also like a very like sensitive person, like energetically, and to like other people's fields, and so it started messing with my internal environment. And then I
Mm,
developed Tourette's syndrome, which for those who don't know, you get these twitches and you get these
yes.
outbursts, and
Mhm.
yeah, so it was severe. And so then they just gave me medication for that, and I was put on ORAP, which I don't think is a well-known medication, for pretty much the whole duration of it. And
What is that? Ulrap?
ORAP, ORAP, ORAP. I'm not exactly sure what it does to the brain, but it was supposed to suppress the tics. But I don't think it worked that well. It was, I mean, I guess it did do something, but I still had tics like every 30 seconds. I had this one where I would yank my arm, like really like, and it would even hurt.
So sorry
And
for
they
laughing. I
it's
just,
fine. It is funny.
it's
It is
so
the
messed
way it
up.
looks, is it's funny, you see a
think
kid
only
like
addicts. I think only like addicts and people who had experiences that are similar could laugh about stuff like that. I mean, thank God
Mhm.
we can. I mean, I'm saying we because I put myself in your category. So yeah, okay.
Right, right.
So good.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
like if you're a black person, nobody will criticize you for making black jokes, So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
was that,
exactly.
so I can laugh about it, and I'm allowed. So I had this thing where I would throw my neck backwards, like to the side,
Hmm.
and at one point I remember I put a neck brace on because I actually hurt my neck because I couldn't stop it.
Jesus
I had this thing
Christ.
where I would I would sniff and go like this, mm, and clear my throat and kind of pull my nose and my mouth and roll my neck around and my hips and flex my muscles and my calves and my toes, and it was like persistent. It was hellish, and it was mostly involuntary, and it was just because of an overloaded nervous system. That's actually all it was. It was
Well,
just the
did you?
nervous
I
system.
know. And did you?
Mhm.
Do you watch people? I mean, I don't want to compare this, but when you watch people, if you watch any kind of YouTube videos or whatever, you watch people on meth, they do the same thing.
Oh
People
yeah, they do.
on
Yeah,
crystal, they're just freaking whacked out of their brains. They do exactly the same thing. They,
they're just
well, at least,
tweaking. Yeah, short circuit it goes. It's
totally.
exactly. So then and obviously, I was the spectacle of the school because that's like really foreign to like the cultural setting there. And so
Mm.
then I didn't have any friends either for I think until
Uh-huh.
maybe grade 8 or something. And so I was quite a bit of an outcast, but at the same time people were intrigued in me as well. Because I didn't always like conform like to certain things. Like one example I can think of is that there was this one kid that was kept picking on me, and his father was the local, what do you call it, the English word, not a pastor, yeah, I
Mhm.
guess you could say the pastor of the local church, and which had the largest congregation. He was also a member of the disciplinary board of the school, and his kid kept picking at me like vocally, and after like months of that, like I punched him like square in the face right in front of the teacher as the kids were going into the class. And I just walked past and I looked at the teacher, and the teacher looked at me in shock, and I smiled at her, and I walked into the classroom. So this is like
How old were you
I
then?
think
Like
even
eighth grade,
I
you said?
I was
Seventh
also
grade?
9. That was grade 4.
Oh, grade four. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
that was
mean, you push someone far enough. I get that. I mean, I've
yeah.
had my outbursts as well. I get it.
uh, and one shot was all I needed. That's all I did.
And
And
then
it
he
kept
left
him
you alone.
quiet, and it took 2 years before he needed another one, and then he didn't need any more.
Thank God.
but but then I think when I was 11, then because I didn't even know I became depressed, but they said I had depression, and then they put me on Prozac, which,
On
yeah,
top of
it's
everything
everybody
else.
knows, it's notorious. Prozac is actually probably one of the most horrible psychiatric drugs that I don't think you can prescribe it anymore because it's so bad, and they've got like improved, so-called improved drugs of that. But yeah, Prozac was like the last nail in the coffin, which numbed me completely.
So you were taking
So
everything. You were taking all of that plus Prozac.
yes, that's right. And at
God.
one time Prozac got changed to Newzac, which was a what do you call
Zach
it?
knew Jack.
The new
Jack
Prozac,
knew
right?
Zach.
A generic jack
That's
me up.
stupid.
And then they swapped me to Zoloft, which was the last one that I was on for a few years before I stopped.
I had a friend
And
on Zoloft. She said it was terrible. Also, getting off of it, she said it was just
uh-huh.
terrible.
Yeah, I got such heavy paranoia, like my mind would trip on um like worst case scenarios, on like whack stuff that you could do to yourself. Like for example, I'm putting the laundry in the washing machine and I'm adding in the fabric softener, and
And
I'm
you're
thinking,
thinking, if I
wow,
drink this,
I yes, exactly. I'll be
oh, I
completely
have
messed
this.
up. And I start freaking out about this reality, which really could happen, you know? And I'm thinking, what is stopping me from doing this? And for me, there wasn't an answer to this. There was nothing stopping me. And I just tripped like on that because I didn't have that mechanism where you can just say,
Oh, I'm not
well,
so
I'm
much of
not
a
going to
story.
do that. I'm not going to do that. I never got there because I didn't have any decision-making powers. Like I didn't have willpower, you know, to do that. So this was my entire, like, you know, pre-pubescent and adolescent life was like that. And
Wow.
yeah,
You know,
it was
that's
pretty
really that
rough.
that is rough. You know, that's like, we're laughing and stuff, but there's some, you know, it's really traumatizing for kids. And we carry that, we carry that. And we carry that if, if we're spiritually oriented people. These are things that get in the way of our relationship with our higher power,
Mhm.
I feel you because I went through very similar, very, very similar experiences. And I'm really, I'm very touched actually, because on the serious side of that, having these, constant like intrusive thoughts and all of that, and the tics, and then putting on that medication and that medication, that's just, it really singles you out. And on the other hand, I think that that's, if I may say that, on the other hand, I really think that that's what leads us into some sort of like bottom where we want to change, where we say,
Yeah.
okay, this isn't working. This isn't
Mhm.
working. This life isn't working. The way we look at the world isn't working. We go through the system like some, this system of the outside world. We go through this system, and as children, we are victims in a way until we
Mhm.
decide not to be anymore. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just wanted to say that. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to interrupt. I just was
No,
inspired to say
that's really nice. I agree with that. And I remember one time when, because I had a few breakdowns, you know, sometimes I
that.
would just
Sure.
leave school because I just couldn't handle stuff, and just walk out on the class and just go home, pack my bags, and and I
Just take
remember
off.
one
Yeah.
time I was like tweaking and twitching, and I was like in tears, and I just asked my mom, you know, like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong with me? And my mom was in tears because she was seeing her baby like in this helpless state, and she didn't have any answers. And on the other side, because I was still very inquisitive, I was very, because it's a Christian background, and I was very sincere, like in my practice. I never felt I was dogmatic. I had a side of me that was, but it came from a good space though, and
Mhm.
especially against, you know, like the satanic cults and all the symbols and stuff. Somehow that got me, but I know why. It is because my nature is a large part of it is being an occultist. And even in my astrological readings, my astrologer told me in the previous life you've mastered the occult, and it's a latent ability like within you,
Oh,
which like I never did
wow.
any Reiki training or anything like that, but I'm like quite a proficient like energy healer. And but I just intuitively, like I was able to do things like that. So I find it interesting how my mind went back to that in that way through Christianity. So they actually reintroduced me to that. Thank you very much. It was
Oh, I love that,
but
man. When I get to
yeah.
Mayapur, I'm coming at the end of October. But when I'm there,
Oh yeah.
you can lay your hands on my shoulders, please, because I'm in pain.
Uh, oh, we
Well,
can try.
yeah, I'm only kidding. Go ahead. Yeah.
So then I would express my doubts about things because I'm philosophically inclined. I'm like a,
Mm.
I would say, I don't like to call myself an intellectual because I think it's pretty lame when people do that. Because a lot of people that
You're
do actually
extremely bright.
aren't.
You're extremely
Ah,
bright. And
thank you.
yes, I see that right away. I mean, it is that.
Mm. So I would ask questions to the youth leaders or the, in the Sunday school at church, and they didn't really appreciate the questions because I didn't appreciate their answers. and so I had a, how to say, I had no sources to go into for information. There wasn't internet yet at that time. I think my father got dial-up internet for the first time when I was 10 or 11 years old, but I didn't use the internet. There weren't any search engines and stuff like that. I think it's something the young generation can't really understand or relate to so much. So information wasn't like available, and what was available was like heavily curated, like by the Christian community. So when I went to university, I went and studied science.
Oh,
I
neat.
did biochemistry, genetics, microbiology, physiology. I loved it. It was really like a great course. And so then I mean, in school
So you were
once
still on these medications. You were still on all of the medications.
yeah, I was still there and I was taking them, but not as frequently
Okay, how
because
old were you
of
around then?
then I was 19
Okay,
in first year of college.
so 10
And
years of medications.
yeah, of taking it like religiously every single day, like barely missing a dose. And then when I got to university, I think towards the last year of the last part of my first year, I started I mean I was drinking a lot because I also had a job at a bar, which I was able to make a lot of money, so I was able to drink a lot. And then I started smoking dope as well. And I think and also from having a irregular routine, I was not following my prescription, taking the meds like as frequently. So that created a bit of a break. And then in my
Mm.
second year of university, because my first year I was sharing an apartment with my older brother, and the second year I was by myself in a bachelor flat. And then I started experimenting with psychedelic drugs, especially LSD and mescaline, and I was also practicing a cult. I was doing certain like breathing techniques, certain mental exercises, um, developing my extrasensory perceptions and things like that. So all of these things, and then I also stopped all my meds cold turkey. I had a guardian angel, who sometimes would just say like one or two words to me, which I would hear clearly like a person whispering into my ear. But in my heart, I knew that I have to follow this advice. I think that's as
Wow.
best as I can explain it. So, and I was instructed that I have to stop this stuff. This is horrible. So it
Mm.
was like stopping my meds cold turkey, experimenting with psychedelics, smoking dope, and practicing occult all at the same time. And it's just this whole Pandora's box just went, it just exploded. And I don't know if I can say it here, but it was a
You could
it was
say
a
anything.
shitstorm. It
Shitstorm.
was,
You can say
yeah, man.
whatever you want here.
I was having like, people talk about dark nights of the soul. I had
Oh
it every
yeah.
single night for like, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3 weeks. Every
Oh
night I was having
God.
convulsions and vomiting and was not able to sleep. And it was like, it
Ugh.
was chaos. It was chaos. And
Cold
it
turkey is
is,
not fun. I've done it a
oh
million
no.
times. It's horrible. It
What's
sucks.
going on?
Yeah.
I yeah, and I realized like I don't know how to even connect to another human being. I have zero social skills. And then somehow I came up with a brilliant idea that I'm going to force myself into social situations where I cannot escape. So it's going to force me to deal with it.
That's good.
Yeah. It was awkward as hell like in the beginning, man. It was but you know what I realized? I actually realized like everybody else is also super awkward. That's why it's feeling so awkward because everybody else is feeling this way too. And that was like a revelation to me when I realized that I can actually feel other people. Like, because I
Right.
never had any sense of empathy or even being able to feel myself, because the meds numb you like completely.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, and it was um so, and then at the same time, as I'm discovering things like insights into life and my psychology and just like how the world works, then I was sharing it with my friends in my friend group, and they weren't so ready to hear those things. So then was also dealing like with them trying to shoot it down as well, and then also like subtly also because they're not like all like straightforward, like duplicity is like a common thing. So then, but I was feeling those things as well with my newfound kind of like awareness of my sensitivity. And so that was pretty hectic. That took a while to actually realize what was happening. But somehow I was able to tolerate it, I think, because I'm thick-skinned, like by nature. So I was able to take it. And then with the psychedelics, I really took it as a way to just peel open all these wounds like in my psyche. I never took it as, I think I started taking it as recreational. Actually, it was just out of ignorance. It was just there. It's like, okay, well, let's try it,
Or just
we're gonna
interest, yeah.
party.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I took LSD twice. The first time was fantastic. The second time I got the fear. And then I took mushrooms. And at that time I was still kind of taking my meds. And it is quite known, which wasn't known to me at the time, that especially serotonin reuptake inhibitors and psychedelics, they go ill together.
Oh,
It's not good. It can be a very bad combination. You can easily get into a psychosis loop,
holy crap.
which I did, because I took these 2 grams of mushrooms. I had a complete ego death, but I didn't understand what even the ego is or how it's separate. And I thought I was dying. I was convinced that this guy had cheated me and he had given me death caps, which are like extremely poisonous mushrooms, and I'm busy dying. And oh my God, it was just it was
You
it
know, I
was it
think
was nightmarish.
I have to kind of, I don't want to find one of them to laugh about it, but yeah, I get that. I've had such bad
Yeah.
trips in my life where you're just like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm not designed for psychedelics, although I've taken them over and over again. I'm not designed for that. And mushrooms,
Yeah.
mushrooms, and mushrooms, mushrooms. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got
it's
some funny
mushrooms.
stories with
It's not a
mushrooms.
recreational drug.
Definitely
It's
not.
not mushrooms
Definitely
is not
not.
recreational. It's therapeutic. It's only therapeutic. It's
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
But somehow when this was happening, I called my parents who were like an hour and a half away living, and I called them and I said, I'm dying. Which was
I'm not doing
absolutely, I
I know
mean,
it's called I'm dying.
and when I was 16, I did try to commit suicide once. Somehow I didn't talk about that. So this was like, now I am 20 years old and my mom is probably having flashbacks about that experience again.
Oh,
And so then anyway, long story short, they are there. I'm sitting next to my mom in the car. My father's driving my car back home. And I start speaking to my mom, and my mom tries to hush me and says, "No, you just calm down, you know."
did you
And I
tell you
just
took
ignored her.
shrooms? Did you tell you were
Yeah,
shrooming?
she knew.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then I just thought like, well, the cat's out of the bag now. Why stop now? So I just started speaking to her, and it actually blew my mom's mind completely, because she said she'd never heard me speak with so much clarity before. And what that did for me, like that
Wow.
experience, I realized like where I'm going in life, and I realized like where I want to go, and that's like in completely 180 degrees the opposite direction.
But do you remember
And
it? Did you remember everything afterwards?
I remembered some key details
Okay.
of it, and but how can you say, in the sankalpa, in Krishna consciousness, they use this
Mhm.
word sankalpa, which is like when you make a very firm and resolute decision to do something, like that's a sankalpa, that was there. And that was very deep and very strong. So even though many of the
So it's the
details I couldn't
essence. It
remember,
was the essence,
exactly.
the solid essence of
Yeah.
what was, yeah.
Yeah, so that was my rock bottom, and that was the beginning, I would say, of my recovery from getting off the meds and just getting my mind back, um, which I'm still getting. But
Good luck with that when you figure that out, man.
yeah,
Tell me.
yeah, yeah. I've realized I'm not going to get it all back. That's not going to happen. But so, that's where it started. And then I realized how, and I'm not an advocate at all for psychedelics, but I am personally honest about it, that it is a powerful tool that can be used for certain therapeutic purposes. And I realized it at that time that it can be used like this. And since then, that is what I used it for. That I would take it. It was at festivals because that's where it was most available. And it was also not, it was out of society in a space where it was acceptable. So I
Right.
didn't have to deal with a lot of those kind of aspects of
Negative,
it.
yeah, the negative
Yeah,
aspects of being in the world and being on shrooms. That's whew,
right.
yeah.
Even though people in themselves would bring that energy there, but it wasn't factually there. And so then I would just like dig into my consciousness, like with that, and discovering different parts of myself and my abilities and my empathy and things like that. And I would say that I could take like very large quantities and still completely speak. I remembered everything, like after the trips. It wasn't like I felt I didn't enter into an altered state of consciousness. I just felt like I entered into a more sensitive state of consciousness where I'm just
Wow.
still being myself. I never felt myself change. I
With
could even drive a
mushrooms.
car.
With mushrooms.
With this was mushrooms, I didn't do so much.
Okay,
It was
then
more LSD and mescaline.
okay, so the
Yeah,
LSD obviously it sounds like it was of the clean variety because I mean, after the 70s and
yeah,
80s, it was very difficult to come across any kind of LSD that was, I don't want to
right.
be an
Yeah,
advocate of all of this stuff either, but
yeah.
this is just experience on the road
No,
to
it's true. It's
recovery.
true.
But yeah,
There's a
I
very
was
strong underground scene there where somehow these people have
a
what there were
recipe.
people that had clean stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a
And
hold of some of that. I used to take care of a marijuana farm in Big Sur, and there was this family there called the Acid family. They'd been there since the 70s. And
huh.
for me, taking care of their crops, it wasn't illegal. I did it for a few weeks. I was supposed to do it for a few months, but I got too lonely up there in the woods
Huh.
alone. So they gave me in payment, they gave me sheets of homemade acid, sheets of homemade acid from the
Oh my
70s,
God.
which was the cleanest acid I ever took in my life. And I can
Huh.
tell you exactly the same experience.
Uh-huh.
I got clarity. There was very much clarity in those trips.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not an advocate. I don't do any drugs
Yeah.
anymore since 27 years. But I'm just saying all of these experiences, like you're saying, you said also you're not an advocate, but all of these experiences led up to the consciousness that we have now.
Right. And
So,
it was like it was part of my journey. So
yes,
I talk about it as in that perspective only. And yeah, people need to make their own choices and kind of
yep,
live with
agreed.
the results of that. So
Totally.
I do not take any responsibility. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's true though.
So
It
so
is. It's that.
yeah. So then I think at the end, I would also use it to test myself. So I would take it and then I'd actually go into society, into normal social settings. And in my mind, I was just like, just to see if I could, which I think was pretty risky because I mean, if you lose it in the middle of a club in the city, you're screwed. It's like what you're gonna do is,
You just gotta kind
but
of
for
run around the
someone that
streets. Oh
run
God.
around, if you can stand up straight, that is, if you know which way is up, it's like,
Oh yeah. Okay.
but
So if you're taking those mega doses, that's crazy. Yeah.
yeah. But then I used it. The last portion, I would say, of getting into it was more to investigate mysticism,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I met the Hare Krishna devotees at the university, at that time I was already not drinking anymore because years ago I just lost taste for it. I might go out and just have a beer with the friends, and then I'd
Mm.
go back home or something like that, but it wasn't habitual.
And it's
And
also not very conducive with psychedelics. I mean, alcohol and psychedelics is kind of a
yeah,
nasty, like
it's
not a
nasty.
mix. It's not a.
I could never get how people do that. The whole case of beer with LSD, so no way. It's
Weird,
like,
totally weird. Yeah. Anyway.
so then I was intrigued by their practice because that's one thing I was missing was an actual practice, a daily like sadhana,
Mm.
which I needed. and I liked it. The philosophy was practical, and it was convincing. And I was doing my second last year in my science degree also. I found it very scientific. So then when I started practicing that, it was very quickly that I just dropped like all the psychedelics, and I even stopped smoking dope like quite quick. And I think the hardest one was actually tobacco. That took a few
Oh
months
yeah,
of like
took me
assertion.
years, man.
Yeah, it's the toughest one for me. And yeah, so then I started practicing that, and then in 2012, then I was 24 years old. No, 2012, 24 years old. I graduated, and then I walked out of my last exam, and I packed my bags, and then I joined the ashram and I became a monk. And I did that for
Wow.
the next like
I
6
bet your
years or
parents were
something.
happy. They were like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
they
he's
were
a science.
thrilled.
He's a scientist. Graduated. What are you a scientist? Do you have a sci? Are you?
Scientist, yeah,
Yeah, so you're a
degree.
scientist, and then you go into an ashram. Thanks, mom. Thanks, dad. See ya.
My mom was in tears, man. The first time my mom heard it, I was
I'm
actually
sorry.
at one of the Hare Krishna programs, and she tried to call me, and then afterwards I called her back, and she said, "Where were you?" And I said I was at this spirituality, philosophy, and yoga society, what they called it. And then she said something like, "That sounds very," I can't
Faulty
remember
or
the
something.
word. Yeah, and then I said, "Yeah, it's the Hare Krishna's mom," and my mom was just, "No, no, no." That was a literal response, and I thought like, "Oh God, here it comes." And it was, and I was feeling her shock. It is
Despair. Oh
because
God.
for her it was like legitimate despair. And then the phone call just ended, and 5 minutes later, got a call from my dad, and he had something to say about it, but he was more in support of my mom. He's not so. He was also a loner, even though he grew up like in the
Hmm.
heart of Afrikaans culture. He made his own way. He was a surfer. He had long hair, which was very different from the typical Afrikaans people of that generation.
Mm.
So then when I graduated and I sat down with my parents, and they said, "So what you gonna do now?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna join the ashram. I'm gonna become a monk." And they said, "What kind of monk?" I said, "I'm going to do a Hare Krishna monk. There's in Cape Town,
Hare
there's the ashram."
Krishna monk. They're like, what the heck is that? What's a Hare Krishna monk? I'm sure they're like, what? Like big question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only experience I've had of it was negative, and it was just one or two incidences
Well, of course,
where,
there is a lot. There is
yeah,
just like in every religion, there's a lot of negative stuff going
mm,
on. Sorry. I mean, it's just the way it is. You look at
it's
any
a fact.
institution, anything that's been institutionalized has its negative qualities. It comes with the
Yeah,
package. You can't have a
yeah,
perfect religious society. Doesn't work like that.
yeah. It's like that.
Yeah.
And
Anyway, go ahead.
anything that's good, you're gonna find the bad trying to destroy it.
Oh,
So they're
totally.
just going to insert themselves. So it's normal that you're going to find that there. I don't know why people get so surprised when they see
I know. It's like
like
they point
the
the
worst stuff
fingers.
happening in the place. Yeah, exactly.
It's like
So
it's like in the Catholic Church, how many, you know, you know, how many child molestations there are and stuff. But I don't see Catholics. I don't see Catholics like saying it's a cult or something. But it is a
yeah,
cult. All religions are cults in a way.
yes,
So it's
yeah.
not
You're
like,
following a doctrine.
yeah, exactly. It's not like, oh, you're in a cult and you don't know it. It's like, yes, I do. I know it. It's
Yeah,
like, I'd rather be in my cult than I would like out
yeah,
there
yeah,
in the freaking, the society is a cult.
yeah.
They
Right,
try to
exactly.
they trim you to like serve them. That's what it is. You're serving society when you go to work. You're just serving the
Yeah,
society. You're serving when you sit at school. They're not teaching you for intelligence. They're teaching you to get into the fucking world of work and
you're right.
slavery.
The
With
cult.
the money. It's a cult. It's all a
Uh-huh.
cult. So yeah. Anyway,
And one of the popular cults are the Apple cult. Your
oh,
iPhone and your iPad is like
hate
it's
iPhone.
the
I'm
same.
such an iPhone hater. It's bad. And not because it's iPhone. I just think it's a shitty product. I think it's way overrated and I
Huh.
don't like it. Anyway, so,
Agreed. It's
yeah.
even though I have an iPhone and I love it, but yeah,
Oh,
I
really?
also
I
have my
hate iPhones.
thing about
They
it.
don't, they're like not compatible with anything except for a Mac and everything else. So you have to like have the
Huh.
whole thing. But I guess it's just what you learn on it first, you know. For me, like
Yeah.
I learned on PC, and I'm just going to stick with that. Anyway,
Uh,
that's neither here nor there. Pick your
yeah. So
poison.
so I did that, you know, the Hare Krishna thing. I still maintained relationship with my parents and everything.
Did they get used
And
to it after a while?
yeah, they did. I did something which I thought was a good move before going to India for the first time in 2013. I already had the orange robes and everything. And I wrote my mom a letter. It was actually like old school, you know, a handwritten letter, which I got a stamp for and I mailed to her. I could have emailed her, but I did it like this. And basically in there, I said that, you know, like I am an adult now and this is my choice and it's for me to make because I have to live with it. And, but, you know, I still love you and you're my mom. But how you respond to this is going to have an effect on what happens to our relationship. You know, if you accept it, then our relationship can continue to grow, which I would love. But if you don't, then it will stay where it is now. But that's also okay for me. So whichever you choose, you know, how I see you won't change. But
That's
so I basically just
beautiful.
I put the ball in her
Wait,
court. Yeah.
rewind. That's amazing. Stop right there. That's like that's what I would call healthy boundaries. That's a very healthy boundary. That's something where you say, I love you. I mean, that's if we deal with people like that, everybody in the world like that, it's so nice because you keep, first of all, you're keeping your side of the street clean, you're keeping it open.
Yeah,
And you're saying, Mom, I
exactly.
love you. And this is, you know, what it is. And like you said, put the ball in her court. And it's not about like playing a game or playing games. It's just fact.
Mhm.
Here's what I
Yeah.
decided. I'm an adult. I'm making a clear decision. If it's not a good decision, then it's for me to live with. And it's for me to live with my consequences with, and not for you. And I
Mhm.
still love you. But if you're going to go against this, then that's kind of your decision. And to make that clear to
Mhm.
people, I think that's wonderful. So I
Uh-huh.
just wanted to like highlight that because I think that it's really a great thing.
Uh,
All right, so go ahead. Sorry, I didn't
yeah.
want to. I just wanted to
Thank you. Yeah, I
shebang
think
that.
that somehow there was a moment of brilliance I had because at
Mm,
that time I wasn't like particularly sensitive because I think being a monk also brought a little bit of fanaticism up in me. And
sure.
also the austerity made my nature a little bit harsh as well. Um, so, but somehow I um I was able to say that to her. And when I was about to board the plane, I spoke to my father and I told him that this letter is coming to her and that maybe he needs to be there, like when she reads it. And my father said that she was in tears, like when she was reading it, but she accepted it, she got it, and she made a choice to like to accept my decision, you know, and she wasn't against
Ah,
it. And it was amazing. It was just like such a breath of fresh air and she was when I got home the next time I saw a few months later, then she said, well, so I asked her, so what about this now? And she said, well, you know, that's fine, but just two things. I must not like preach to them. I said that's fine with me, and that they have I would have to be willing to answer some questions. And I said I would love somebody to ask a question.
yeah,
Which
it's
they never
gonna
did. They never did, by the way.
really. So,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
sure they've done their research. Well, maybe I don't know if that's what your
I'm
parents are
sure.
like.
I'm sure they must. I think my father must have looked into it a bit. And one time when my father was giving me a lift to the ashram when I visited after visiting them, I asked him, "So how do you feel about this? Me doing this?" And he said, "Well, he's just got two concerns. One is that I'm happy, and two is that I'm using, you know, the intelligence that I've been given, like in this life." Because he also told me I'm one of four kids, and he said, "You're the smartest of them all." And
Tell your brothers and sisters.
yeah, thanks, Dad. I already know. That's a joke.
It's so funny.
And so that was really nice. And so I think that I mean when I changed ashram, like in Hare Krishna lingo, we say I became a householder.
Yeah,
So
it's
there
good
was this
stuff.
period where I wasn't a monk and I wasn't married yet. So I was kind of like out on my own. I moved to a place called the Garden Route, which is like you could say the hippie area of South Africa. and it's nice there. It's like ocean, mountains, forests. It's like no cities. It's like little towns, and
Oh, nice.
so I lived like off grid there. And then so my spiritual practice took a knock, and I kind of for a year went back into the vices again. But I would say that basically I discovered that there's nothing there for me anymore. So I think that
So it was like the therapeutic,
um,
that's what we call a therapeutic relapse of the
uh-huh.
therapeutic
Oh,
kind,
that's
which
nice.
means to
Uh-huh.
figure out, like, that's the, I mean, I don't recommend it to anyone, but it happens. And when it happens, you just kind of, it's like that
Mhm.
final, like, okay, we go back, we check it out, and we make sure that that's not what we want anymore. And yeah, it sounds like that's what happened, right?
Uh,
Of this therapeutic variety.
yeah. Yeah. So then at that time, I felt like I'm okay now, I'm in a good space. And then until I got married, and then I realized what a hard ass I actually am. And and I got a family starter pack. So the wife came with a kid who was 4 years old at the time. And now
Okay.
I've got three kids. And I think the pressure that I'm under from that, not just from having to deal with the nature of kids, but also the pressure of having to be a certain somebody for them that I would like to be for them. So
Mm-hmm.
that has put me under pressure, which I wasn't on before, ever in my life. So then I saw like a lot of these problems which was created from my childhood time coming up again, particularly like anger and irritability and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and being insensitive. So
So
it's yeah.
let me ask you something. So when you said, the role you have to play because you'd like to be that person for your children,
Hmm.
and that pressure that you have, is this, have you really like taken apart that I have to thing? And have you taken apart that sentence, I have to, the pressure
Uh-huh.
that I have to? Do
Yeah.
you have do you have something where you're like, okay, no, I want to?
Hmm.
Or do you
Yeah.
feel, or is it kind of a feeling of like, okay, um, is it something, is it like a samskara, like something that it's like baggage that you have to, or is it something that you'd like to do? Because
It's
there's a huge difference.
yeah. There is a difference, and I appreciate you bringing up that point because actually currently this is like one of the things I'm actually busy going through and trying to shift, where I realize that I'm choosing to aspire to become somebody, but it's not that somebody I have to be, and then coming into terms with my shortcomings as a human being, which is normal for a human being,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time holding myself to my highest standard, but at the
Right.
same time not beating myself on the
Yourself
head when
up.
I don't meet that
Yes,
standard, right?
exactly.
So this is like one of the things I'm actually like cultivating and like reflecting on like at the moment.
It's a
So
really good place to be,
yeah,
especially
it is.
especially where we're dealing with conditioning. So
Hmm.
a lot of these things that we tell ourselves, I have to be this or I have to be that, that has to do with conditioning, whether it's
Hmm.
conditioning in this life or in our past lives or both, end.
Hmm.
Um, and or the pressure that we just put on ourselves, like you said, being a devotee with all of with everything involved is a freaking high bar, man, for most
Yeah.
people. For me, like, four regs are great. I don't have one problem with the four regs. I have a problem with chanting. I don't like to chant. Don't feel
Hmm.
it. Don't like it. And I know that that's like a lot of Hare Krishnas are like when they hear that, but it's fact. It's fact for me.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
still do chant. I just
Uh-huh.
don't. I just don't have a connection. It's just like words for me. So
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. But these are the things. These are the things. Anyway, go ahead. I lost my train of thought. But you were saying
Yeah, being
those are the things
honest and
you're thinking
authentic.
about.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So this pressure has brought that up. So I have been seeing like a therapist and things to just like speak about it, and
Mm,
so I've been trying to take advantage of resources which are there to help me like understand these things, and actually just it's really just meeting those parts of yourself and just coming acquainted with them, and then you can make a choice whether you're welcome to stay here or not. I think it's and so you can choose like who you want to be, and you can work to that. But at the same time, which I think Krishna conscious philosophy is amazing for, is that the result of that thing is not as important as your endeavor for doing that.
Oh my gosh,
Because
yes.
if you try and you fail, then when you die, you can stand before God and said, I did my best, and that was what I did is what I could do. And then that's all I could do. So what more can you expect? And God is completely with you on that, because he's like more human than us, like in the sense of being empathic and accepting,
Yes.
so he understands. But if you don't try, then you can't say that. And then it's like, well, there are these things that you could have done, so maybe you could have gotten what you were going for, but because you didn't give it your all, who knows
Yes.
whether you would have got there or not. And then there's this regret and there's all stuff that can come up.
Oh God, I
So
so relate to you. We're going to be
yeah.
really good friends. I'm glad you're my neighbor, man.
Jai.
My neighbor. Like, how many
So
houses do we live? How many houses are you away from me? Like two, you said, like two or three buildings away.
yeah, I could throw a stone from where I am into your building. If that distance, I can throw a stone that distance.
Oh, that's so
If you walk,
cool.
yeah, that is pretty cool. So
That's so cool. I
yeah,
totally relate to you. You and I are very, very similar.
that's nice. It's
It
nice to have
is.
similar people, like-minded people.
Absolutely. I'm excited. So,
But yeah, go ahead.
so go ahead. No, you go ahead.
So now, like the current thing I'm like trying to apply, like with my children, which I'm feeling is like my recovery is now more going into like outside of me, is that like I try to do my best and give the best example, but when I do have a little bit of a freak out or something, then I apologize to my kids, because on the one hand, we try to have a traditional structure where there's a hierarchy. The parents are at the top because we have a certain service to perform, and because this generation of kids really have zero respect for the older generation, and which is such a phenomenon to me.
I've
And
seen that. I've
but
seen that.
yeah,
It's insane.
but at the same time, I tell them, I'm sorry I did that thing. It is not okay to react like that. This is why I did it, but that is not a good way to react to the way that I felt. And there's better ways of doing that. But I'm
And
just
that's the
saying you
lesson
that,
for your kid. That's the lessons for your kid.
yeah,
The lessons for
exactly.
your kid
And
is I'm human, I make mistakes, yet I apologize and I keep myself accountable, period. Whether you're an adult or not an adult, it's about respect. And respect is not only through authority. It is a way, but it's not only through like, you say it again, I'm going to smack your head or whatever. I mean, I'm Generation X, it was like, you don't like it, get the hell out. That was like my generation. And when I was 14, I was out of the house. I was asked to leave. So.
Wow. Oh yeah, I remember hearing that story. Yeah, that's rough, man. It just for me, it was also the stick. There was just like you told once, twice, and then bang, you get smacked.
Yeah,
That was
exactly.
it. Nobody's asking you why did you do this. They just assume you're just being a naughty bastard. But actually, you're trying to tell them that I'm not happy. There's something wrong. I need somebody to help me. It's like
totally. And then what do they do? Give you a pill. Send you to the, but it's ignorance also. And it's kind of a shame because it's like, I don't hate my parents for that. I don't hate them.
Yeah.
I really don't. I feel bad. I feel bad that, like, cause here, like, we do talk about this, in our Gaudiya Vaishnava, way of living. We, that being in Maya, being in this world is really a place of ignorance, and the forces that are in charge. I mean, this is not even a religious truth. This is a truth. And everyone, if you're into politics, if you're into religion, if you're into science, if you whatever it is you're into, you have to know that this world is freaking insane. What's going on here is fucking crazy. And I've always known that. I've known that since I was a child. I remember sitting in front of my kitchen. So this is one of my very earliest memories. And there was like so I grew up in New York City, and I grew up right on the Hudson River. So the sun would go down in New Jersey, and my kitchen window the building next door, the sun would shine on its windows, and then that purple, only in New York, this purple red sun that went down would shine onto the building, and then that light would shine into my kitchen window. And I was sitting under the sink watching that and daydreaming. I always like to daydream, and I like to hide under the kitchen sink. That was kind of my place to chill. It was like my quiet space. I thought to myself, just in that moment, I thought, what am I doing here? I think this is all a dream. I don't think I'm here. I think I'm not here. I think this is not real. This can't be real. And it scared the shit out of me.
Wow.
And I think I must have been about 4 or 5, maybe 5. And I think since that moment, I viewed the world as being a place where I don't fit in and I don't belong. And in hindsight now, and being clean and sober for 27 years and being in a spiritual program and then coming into Krishna consciousness and being able to define what my God is and all of that stuff, and to find something that speaks to me in the most way. In hindsight, it's true. I don't belong here.
Yeah, it's a fact. And this world's messed up.
Yes, exactly. And it's not a weird feeling. It always made me like, oh my God, I don't fit in. I don't fit in. Well, thank freaking God I don't fit in, because it's weird. It's just weird. So anyway, yeah. So you were, with your kids and stuff, when you were saying, being able to give our kids that, and, having our parents not knowing those facts because they just don't think that way. Maybe it's a shame, and I feel bad for them. I don't blame them. I don't blame my parents.
Yeah. I also feel the same. When I gone through those parts of me where I had to forgive my parents, and part of that forgiveness process was basically, I didn't actually say it to them, but just in my meditation, I would connect to them subtly. And then I would tell them, I understand why you did that, because this is where you were coming from. Your world was like this. This was how you saw reality. And what else were you supposed to do? That's what you thought was best. So I kind of just acknowledged that part, that they really did do it out of wanting to, to help me. But
absolutely,
they just didn't know what they were doing, because they were told by people they trusted, this is good, you should do this. So in that way, I have no grudges about it. And so that's I appreciate that too. That's a very important process. I think also the healings that we give up all our grievances, because those things actually, all these bad qualities and vices, they get stuck to the grievances, and the bad patterns we've developed, they're connected to grievances quite often.
Wow.
And I found that really healthy. And then so with my kids, I felt like, giving that example that it's okay to be human. This is what it is to be human, and to be a responsible human, not to not make a mistake, but just to be accountable, and just to be
and
honest,
to own that mistake. Yeah, own that mistake.
Responsible.
Yes.
I once tried to explain to them why I have some of the twitches I have, like when I get like anger or stuff.
How old are your kids?
My oldest one is 9 years old.
Okay, so
And
they
then
can
I've got
understand.
he's a boy, and a 4.5-year-old boy. I didn't talk to him about it. His attention span is
okay.
0.1.
Okay.
And then a little baby girl. Okay. And but he kind of got it, I just felt it was nice for him to, sometimes you do something and they're like, Papa, like, why are you doing this? So if you could understand a little bit about, my brain is a little bit broken. So so that might help you understand,
there's a glitch in the matrix up there, kid.
A glitch.
There's a glitch in the matrix.
Right. Yeah. So I would say that, so that's like my story of like recovery, but I would also say that, the recovery continues, because I think because I was on medicated during my formative years, so it's God, I think it's impossible to estimate actually what was done or how I did not develop or whatever. And there was a period of me like freaking out about that, will I ever come to like a normal adult state? And I also kind of, what is normal anyway? And so that was also part of my recovery.
I also think, absolutely. And I think that's all a part of it. And it's especially people who think, and I definitely, or who are very, very reflective. And I think you're one of them. So being totally reflective sometimes can be the most amazing thing and a detriment, both.
Mhm.
And, you know, at some point for me, and I don't know, maybe for you, is just to say like, okay, I trust the process. And you know what? All of that stuff is part of my story. It was supposed to happen or else it wouldn't have. So I trust Krishna. I trust God
Mhm.
with everything. It's all supposed to have happened. We're burning karma.
Yeah.
We're here to burn karma.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
here to, like, you know, actually, to tell you the truth, somehow I've got thoughts also about like what's karma and what are we here and why do we, you know, and how can we do this? In a way, to make it real simple, it's like this life is like a video game and you just keep going up in levels.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you shoot, you burn, and you go up to the next level. And then you go up to the next level. And then you go up to the next level. And then you're hoping when you die, you don't have to come back to this freaking video game again,
It's
you know?
game. Yeah. I like that. Only difference is you can't save and load your game. There's no checkpoints you can reload. If you messed up, that's it, you know. Pressure's on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I also feel like that, you know, if I didn't go through all of that, which was also clearly indicated in my like astrological charts, that I have a very like hellish childhood. And if I didn't go through that, the chances are that I would have become a muggle, you know.
Yeah,
I would have
totally.
just become like an ordinary like vox populi, like
Vox
so
populi. I love it.
So I'm grateful for that in a sense, you know, because it's part
Mm,
of who I am today, and I like who I am today,
yeah.
and I like who I'm becoming also. So and I'm working towards that.
It's great. I
Yeah.
feel the same way. It's like I'm kind of like I I you know, this is the funny thing. So everybody, and this is what always makes me think again, is this, and what do you think about this? So right now also I'm kind of reading a lot of stuff about in the Bible. I love the Bible as well. I love the Gita, I love the Bible. There's many lessons to be learned in any kind of, you know, spiritual practice or any kind of, you know, bona fide literature, you know, religious studies. Um, and I find like your story now, did you go to a 12-step program?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay. Well, because
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
was okay, because what I was going to say was even people who haven't been in a 12-step program, who have followed a way in religion or some sort of regimen to get themselves out of something, right? Get themselves out of a bad situation, some sort of recovery, you know, coming into whatever it is. I find it's different language, but it's almost the exact same process, using different words, having different tools. But it all
Yeah.
is kind of, and this is what makes me think. So yes, I have my path, but my path is no better than anyone else's path. That's the thing. That's what it's very clear to me. In my old age here, I've seen Christians and Catholics who are amazing devotees and who have the most amazing, you know, spiritual life. I've seen people just in 12-step recovery programs who don't have maybe a very defined God, and they have an amazing life. And I'm not judging from their talk. I'm judging from their life and their actions. Talk is cheap.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are people who walk it, who don't just talk it. And I'm happy with my path, but my door is very wide. So, you know, and I will sit down with anybody who wants to improve themselves in any way that they can, because I think we're all speaking the same language. And in AA, they say like good orderly direction, God, good orderly direction. And I believe that I've had spiritual experiences making my bed, knowing that that is the key to a happy life, and or to a happy inside life. It's very hard to explain that to people who are dogmatic, and I think it's a personal choice. So I don't know. What do you think about that? What is your experience about that?
Yeah, I fully agree. That's one of the things which attracted me so much to the Hare Krishna you know, teachings and lifestyle, because I always understood that spirituality must be all-inclusive and non-sectarian, you know. It has to include everything, because everything comes from the same source, which in a sense, from that perspective, everything is spiritual, because it's all coming from the same thing. And therefore, anything that divides cannot be spiritual. So, and the Hare Krishna teachings they say that, you know, and it took me many years to really like for it to go from my head to my heart. And I think especially when I left the ashram, it started becoming more of a realization for me, where
Of course, because the real practice
saw
is in the
people,
real world, right? I mean,
yeah. It's in the ashram life, you really have to apply yourself very, very seriously to be able to get those realizations there. And I think I didn't have that type of discipline required to get it. So which is why I needed to move on. My decision to change was to benefit my spiritual life. That was why I chose to not be a monk anymore, because I
and
felt
that's the best
I can.
way. That's the best right there. That's the best.
That's your yardstick. You know, what should I
Absolutely.
choose? Which one is best for my spiritual life? You choose that. You know, and I'm glad I did it, because I prayed a lot and meditated a lot, and that was the guidance that I got to do. I should do that, and so I developed the same kind of mood. You know, where like externally, like I follow, like, you know, the Hare Krishna teachings and everything, but, you know, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he said it like brilliantly. He said that if one sincerely follows his religious practice and he actually becomes advanced, then he no longer identifies with any particular religious denomination or demarcation, but he identifies with himself as being a servant of God.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
this is so amazingly said. I'll send you the video. If you hear him say it, it's so much more powerful. It's like,
Yeah,
wow.
definitely send that
Yeah.
to me, and I'll put it in the comments for
Yes.
and so people can directly go to their, you know, any
Right. Yeah.
if they're
So
inspired.
and so that's what they're saying, you know. He says, like, you know, like what Jesus is saying, you know, love your God with all your heart, all your might. That means just become a servant of God, become a lover of God. Like in Islam, you know, there's Rumi also, and he's speaking similar things about being a lover of. It's the same thing, you know. What's the difference? So it's like they're speaking different languages, or they're wearing different dress, but we're all cousins and nephews and brothers and sisters, and it's so that's how I see it too. Even here in Mayapur, one of my wives, I would say, like, best friends, you know,
I
she's a
thought you were going to
Catholic
say
lady.
one of my wives. Period.
Did I say that? I said
You
that.
just said one of
Oops.
my wives.
Oh,
and then
right,
you're
right.
best friends, and I was like, "What? You have one of my wives?" I'm sorry, I'm only kidding.
I guess it should have been wives, not wives. I said a V instead of an S, right? Yeah. One of her
my
best friends.
wives. Absolutely. If you want to become a Hare Krishna, you have to be sister wives. No, sorry, wrong religion. Okay, so
Slip
one of
of
your
the tongue.
wife's best friends.
Yeah. So she's a Catholic. She lives here in Mayapur, you know, the heart of the Hare Krishna world. And she's a Catholic, and she reads the Bible every day. She chants on her rosaries. She chants Hare Krishna too. But I think she sees herself as an identity as a Catholic Christian lady, and she's very saintly. She's
I
very advanced.
love that. That's
I think,
beautiful.
yeah. And
You know
she's
what? That
so
makes me
like,
happy because you know what
yeah,
you know what I've just put on my altar? Not this one here, but the one in my living room.
uh-huh.
But Our Lady of Seven Sorrows. I don't know if you know
Oh,
it's a
nice.
Catholic thing. I
Uh-huh.
love Our Lady of Seven Sorrows.
Mm.
So you know, the ones with the knives in her heart. She's
Yeah.
so it's a saint.
Wow.
It's totally beautiful. So yeah, I is she who is she a disciple of? Or is she initiated or no?
No, she's not,
No,
because
okay.
she's a Catholic. She's Catholic, you know. They don't take initiation like we do. So I don't
So
know if
cool.
what the thoughts about that is, but yeah, she's very comfortable in that, and I can see that she's like attained some advanced stage in the spiritual life, you know, and because of that, she can also see the sameness of everything we are doing. So she's got no conflict like in herself of being
So
Christian and living here.
inspiring.
It's
Thank you for
amazing,
saying that.
isn't
I
it?
freaking love
Yeah.
that.
It's great. It's so great. This is like real spiritual life. And I really like that. And when I see people who do get into the whole, you know, I'm right, you're wrong, the dogmatic kind of thing, I just understand that, well, they're just immature spiritual
Yeah.
practitioners.
They're
And
insecure also. They're insecure. They're just trying to
yes.
hold on to what they believe, and that's okay.
Yeah,
I get that.
exactly. And then, but those people, their only hope is if they actually strictly follow whatever they've decided to commit to. Because if they don't, if they live like they go to church, but then they don't follow, then they're not going to advance ever. They'll never get off of that platform. So
Absolutely.
then,
That
so
was
when
a
I used to go
decision
in the
from,
streets of Cape
oh,
Town,
sorry, go ahead. Hmm.
when I used to go in the streets of Cape Town to distribute, the Hare Krishna literature, and sometimes
You're
I'd
a
meet
brave
people
boy,
who
man. I'll never do that.
it's daunting, it is.
Uh,
So then they would say like, I'm a Muslim. And then I would say, oh wow, that's really wonderful. And I asked them, do you have tasbih, which is their version of the beads that they chant on? And if
yes.
they say yes, then I ask them, do you chant on it? Do you chant the names of Allah? And when they say yes, then I just go like, wow, that's so amazing. You should keep on doing it. This is such a great practice. And if they say no, that they're not chanting or they don't have, then I'd
And
say
you
like,
ask
why
why.
not? Why?
Yeah.
You should do this. This is really good. It's like your scriptures are saying this. So I just try to encourage people to follow those things they've committed to, because then
You know
they will
what,
get benefit.
Mrdanga, this is the thing.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that one interview with Prabhupada? Who there's like this famous interview when he's being interviewed on a news channel, and he said, let me just say this. This is not verbatim. This is just what I say. He said,
Uh-huh.
I'm not here to bring people to believe in Krishna and my religion. I'm here to
Uh-huh.
remind you of your own God.
Uh-huh.
And
That's
that is
right.
exactly that.
Uh-huh.
Not trying to convert anyone into anyone else's religion. Just do your religion and do it well.
Yes.
That's it.
Put your
Encourage
heart into
people.
it.
That's
Uh-huh.
it. Put your blood, sweat, and tears and heart into it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Do you
amazing
believe
that
we've been talking for an hour and a half?
it's hard to believe. It was I'm enjoying this a lot.
Oh my God, me too. Actually, I'm sure people will enjoy it. I'm sure people will get something out of this. This is very, very nice conversation. So I'm really glad and happy that you showed up for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me or having me over. It was really fun. Nice to share.
You know what I would love? I would love to do this again and maybe pick a topic, and then we can just kind of talk about that topic and share our experience, strength, and hope with that topic. Would you be interested in that?
I would love to.
Oh my God,
That
great.
sounds fantastic.
So before we wind
Mhm.
this up, are there any last words?
I don't know. I think everything was really like clearly said. I think that dream big. Don't have a small dream. And whatever you can dream, you can come up with. You should just accept that you could be dreaming bigger,
Mm.
and go for it. Like be the person who you want to be, and don't give up on that. Don't settle for mediocre. Don't settle for sand in your ice cream. Go and get yourself a good ice cream with no sand in it. Why do you have to accept all the bullshit? Some people say
Mm.
it's just a part of life, man. You got to roll with the punches. It's like, no, I don't want to. Why do I need to roll the punches? I don't like being punched. It's like, so these are the real questions. So find answers to those questions. How can I eat ice cream without sand in it? Because ice cream is good, but nobody likes sand in the ice cream.
That's going to be the title of this episode.
Huh. That's
That'll be the
nice.
title. That'll be
Yeah.
the title. I love that. I love that. And also my little thing would be, and do it slowly, step by step.
Slowly. Yes.
Step
Yes.
by step.
Slow and thorough.
Yeah, because I have that pizzazz thing where I'm just like, yeah, I'm like ADHD, hyper focused on something. All the rest of my life it's gonna be like this, and then I'm like, like that's the worst.
Crash. Like, why? What's happening? So impatient.
Totally. Oh. All right. So Mrdanga, I'm gonna call you Mrdanga.
That's fine.
It's the best actually, because yeah, I think maybe when I get to Mayapur, I'm not moving there permanently. I'm not moving there for the whole year. I'll be there months out of the year. Looking forward to that.
That's nice. I look forward to you here as well.
Yeah, me too. Looking forward to meeting your family and having association with you, chilling out, hanging out. And
Yeah, we do kirtan every Wednesday night.
at your
So,
house.
yeah, at our house, really close to
Cool.
where you're gonna be.
Great. So it's just a stone's throw away.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So thank you so much again for this wonderful talk. And we'll have you really soon in the future back on again. So thanks. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Hari Hari.
This concludes another episode. Thanks for listening. In order for me to serve this community to the best of my ability, I welcome feedback. Please write your feedback at bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. That's bhaktirecoverypodcast@gmail.com. Also, please don't forget to follow and give us a 5-star rating. Share this with family and friends. If you'd like to join our Bhakti Recovery community or just find out what we're all about, please visit our website at www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. That's www.bhaktirecoverygroup.com. There are no dues or fees, and we meet daily. If you or someone you know is struggling with addictions and/or associated behaviors, you will find links in our show notes to various 12-step programs. Nobody seeking recovery need ever be alone again.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज.
The miseries of material existence and the most hopeless conditions of life is the best possible opportunity to turn to God.